February 1943. Stalingrad has fallen. 300,000 German soldiers are dead or in captivity. The southern front is no longer a front. It is a line drawn on a map that corresponds to nothing on the ground. Army Group Don holds positions that exist only in situation reports filed to Berlin. Hitler responds with an unconditional hold order. Hold the line. The same logic that worked at Moscow in December 1941. But there is a problem with that logic here. You cannot hold something that does not exist. And yet, while the entire Eastern Front bleeds out at half strength, while Heer infantry divisions fight with fewer than 7,000 men instead of 15,000, while Heer panzer divisions operate 30 tanks instead of 100, something unusual is happening 1,200 miles to the west. In France and Germany, 3 SS divisions are receiving a complete refit, not partial replacements, not patched-together leftovers, a full-scale re-equipment with the newest hardware rolling off German production lines. The Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, Das Reich, Totenkopf. Their rosters are filled. Their motor pools are stocked. Their panzer regiments received the long-barreled Panzer IV Ausführung G, a variant that can reliably penetrate a T-34 at 800 to 1,000 meters. These vehicles arrive in significant numbers. Meanwhile, most Heer divisions still fight with older models. The records show something else. The Leibstandarte finishes its reorganization at a readiness level closer to full paper strength than any comparable army division on the Eastern Front. This is not an accident. This is not a logistics quirk. The allocation documents tell a specific story. Systematic preferential treatment of the Waffen-SS over the regular army. The question is what that preference actually bought. The gap between what a German division should have and what it actually has, this is the central fact of the Eastern Front in early 1943. Sollstärke versus Iststärke. Paper strength versus real strength. The Wehrmacht's planning tables assume units at full capacity. The field reports tell a different story. An infantry division authorized for 15,000 men fields less than half. A panzer division authorized for 100 tanks sends 30 or 40 into battle. This is not the failure of individual commanders. The source material is explicit on this point. It is the structural result of a loss rate that exceeds the replacement capacity of the entire system. But the SS Panzer Corps exists outside this math. The Tiger I, an 88mm gun mounted on a 57-ton chassis. Schwere Panzerabteilung 503 operates alongside the SS formations. The Tiger penetrates every Soviet tank at ranges where no Soviet weapon can penetrate the Tiger. This is not a marginal advantage. It is asymmetric warfare within the same army. The files show a pattern. The newest equipment flows to SS units. The Panzer IV Ausführung G with the long 75, present in substantial numbers in the SS Panzer Corps. Older variants, that is what the Heer gets. A Heer officer reviewing these allocation tables would see exactly what they meant, and the records confirm the reaction. Bitter resentment. The German word is sharper, bitterem Unmut. Line officers in the regular army watching SS divisions receive what their own men desperately need. There is a logic to this system. Concentrate quality in a few formations. Create an elite spearhead. But that logic contains a hidden assumption, that the spearhead can accomplish what the whole army cannot. The assumption has not yet been tested. Kharkov falls on February 16th. The Soviets take it without a fight. The front is in motion. Soviet forces are pushing west across the Donets Basin with momentum that looks, on the situation maps, like an unstoppable tide. Division after division presses forward. Supply lines stretch. The distance between forward units and their depots grows longer every day. Erich von Manstein reads the maps differently. There is a point in an attacker's overextension where strength becomes weakness, where the distance covered stops being advantage and becomes vulnerability. This point is calculable. It is not mystical, it is logistics. Soviet rifle divisions, ground down by weeks of continuous advance, now field between 1,000 and 2,000 combat troops each. Their tank brigades have outrun their fuel and ammunition. The spearheads are sharp but thin. Manstein sees the geometry. The SS Panzer Corps, freshly equipped at near full strength, carrying the best hardware the Reich produces, is the instrument designed precisely for this moment. Not to hold a line, to strike into the gap between Soviet momentum and Soviet supply. But notice what this plan requires. It requires formations that most of the Wehrmacht no longer possesses. Divisions at full strength, modern tanks in significant numbers, trained crews with adequate ammunition reserves. The SS Panzer Corps has all of this because the allocation system gave it priority over everyone else. The plan is brilliant. The instrument is real. But the instrument exists only because resources were taken from somewhere. Every Tiger sent to Schwere Panzerabteilung 503 is a Tiger that a Heer division does not have. Every fresh replacement filling an SS roster is a man not filling an army roster. The counterattack has not yet begun, and the cost is already being paid, just not by the units about to attack. February 19th, the counterstroke begins, not as a single coordinated grand assault across the entire front. The records describe something more precise, a system of thrusts at corps and division level, executed under Auftragstaktik, mission-type tactics. Commanders on the ground make decisions based on local conditions, within the framework of Manstein's operational intent. This is the German command philosophy working exactly as designed. And it works because the units executing it have something most German formations on the Eastern Front no longer possess: the men, the machines, and the ammunition to actually carry out their orders. A Panzer IV with a broken transmission requires 6 to 8 hours of field repair. This matters. The SS Panzer Corps has the maintenance crews, the spare parts, the recovery vehicles. 20 to 30% of damaged tanks return to combat within a week. For under-strength Heer divisions running on depleted logistics chains, that number is far lower. The advance cuts into the Soviet flanks. One thrust isolates a forward Soviet grouping. Another severs a supply route. The geometry that Manstein identified on the map is translating into reality on the ground. Soviet commanders recognize the danger, but recognition and response are two different things. Their divisions are strung out across hundreds of kilometers. Redeployment takes time they do not have. And here is where the equipment gap becomes visible in operational terms. The Panzer IV Ausführung G engages T-34s at 800 meters and kills them reliably. The Tiger engages at ranges where Soviet tankers cannot effectively return fire. The SS formations are not just attacking, they are attacking with a qualitative overmatch that regular German units can only observe from their positions, undermanned, under-equipped, holding sectors with a fraction of their authorized strength. The advance accelerates. By early March, the counterattack has shattered the Soviet overextension south of Kharkov. The question now is the city itself. Manstein's operational logic calls for encirclement. Bypass the city from the north, cut off the garrison, let logistics do the killing. Hauser's SS Panzer Corps receives these orders, and then, on March 11th, does something else entirely. Instead of swinging north to encircle, the SS divisions drive directly into Kharkov, frontally, into a city, against a defending garrison that knows the streets. 4 days of house-to-house fighting follow. The records do not explain why. The operational rationale for a direct urban assault against orders is absent from the documentation. What exists instead is a result. By March 14th, some accounts say the 15th, the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler has retaken the city center. By March 17th, Belgorod falls as well. The cost is buried in the same casualty figures already accumulating. The gain is a city, a name, a headline. Soviet losses across the entire Kharkov counteroffensive reach approximately 90,000, against 4,300 SS casualties. The ratio is staggering on paper, and on paper is precisely where it matters most. Because this is not just a military operation. It is a proof of concept. The proof that Hitler's investment in the SS, the full-strength refits, the modern tanks, the Tiger allocations, has produced a visible, dramatic, undeniable victory. 3 weeks after the worst German defeat of the war, the SS has retaken a major Soviet city. The propaganda value is incalculable. The Heer, fighting at 40% strength with obsolete equipment, has no equivalent story to tell. The investment has paid its dividend. The question is what that dividend actually purchases. The front line of spring 1943 now contains a shape, a bulge, a salient centered on Kursk, created directly by the Kharkov counteroffensive. It will define the next major German operation of the Eastern War. But before that operation is planned, before the name Kursk enters the strategic vocabulary, there is a moment, a pause in the paperwork, a space between the victory reports and the next requisition orders. In that space, a question forms. Was Kharkov proof that the Wehrmacht could still win the war? The operational answer, visible in the same logistics tables that made the counterattack possible, is no. 3 structural realities sit in the files, unchanged by any tactical victory. German armaments production cannot compensate for Eastern Front losses. The manpower reserves necessary for a strategic offensive do not exist. Air superiority, taken for granted in 1941 and 1942, is in the process of being permanently lost. And there is a 4th reality, quieter than the others. The qualitative formations that fought at Kharkov cannot be copied. Their quality is the result of long investment in training and experience. It cannot be accelerated. It cannot be scaled. A multiplier on a shrinking base shrinks. While these battles are being fought, Soviet factories are producing vehicles. In 6 months, those vehicles will be crewed by soldiers better trained than the Soviet crews of 1941. The war of attrition the Soviet Union is waging does not depend on winning any single engagement. It depends on the cumulative exhaustion of a system that cannot afford lost crews the way the Soviet system can. The German system has just proven it can win a battle. The evidence that it can win the war is nowhere in the files. The aftermath of Kharkov moves through 2 separate channels. The first channel is visible, commendations, headlines, the narrative that the SS Panzer Corps has achieved what no other formation could. Hitler's resource allocation, the Tigers, the full-strength Panzer IVs, the complete refits, appears vindicated. The investment thesis holds. Give the best to the best, and miracles follow. The second channel moves through quartermaster offices and replacement depots. it is quieter. The numbers in this channel tell a different story. The 4,300 casualties from the SS Panzer Corps must be replaced. The vehicles lost or damaged must be repaired or substituted. The ammunition expended must be resupplied. Every shell fired at Kharkov is a shell that will not exist for the next operation. And the next operation is already taking shape. The Kursk salient demands a response. The planning begins almost immediately. But the replacement pipeline that rebuilt the SS divisions over the winter of 1942 to 43 is not infinitely renewable. The same industrial base that prioritized 3 SS divisions must now also prepare for a summer offensive of far greater scale. The Heer divisions that held the rest of the front during the Kharkov operation are still at half strength, still using older equipment, still generating the same bitter resentment documented in their officers' reports. One exception exists in the records. Division Grossdeutschland, a Heer formation, receives priority treatment comparable to the SS divisions. Same modern equipment, same preferential allocation. This exception proves something important. The gap is not about SS versus Heer as institutions. It is not about ideology or loyalty. It is about a resource allocation decision made from the top, a decision with a specific signature. The system chooses favorites. The rest absorb the cost. The question Kharkov poses is not whether the SS Panzer Corps fought well. The casualty ratios answer that. The tactical execution answers that. The question is what that excellence purchases at the strategic level. Soviet industry, during the weeks of the Kharkov counteroffensive, does not stop. Production lines in the Urals continue outputting T-34s. Training camps continue producing crews. The losses of 90,000 men are absorbed into a mobilization system designed to sustain exactly this kind of attrition. The German system is not designed for this. It is designed to win quickly, with qualitative superiority, before the numbers turn irreversible. Kharkov is the proof that qualitative superiority still functions. It is simultaneously the proof that the window for its relevance is closing. The qualitative system wins the battle. The quantitative system wins the war. This is not a judgment. It is an equation. And the variables in that equation are moving in one direction only. Every Tiger I allocated to the SS Panzer Corps is a Tiger I not allocated to a Heer division on another sector. Every Panzer IV Aus G delivered to the Leibstandart is an older variant remaining in service with a formation that will face the same T-34s without the same gun. The resource prioritization that made Kharkov possible is the same resource prioritization that weakens every other point on a front stretching from Leningrad to the Black Sea. Concentration creates capability at one point. It creates vulnerability everywhere else. The files from spring 1943 contain both the victory and its price. They are in the same archive. They require only reading both folders. Kharkov does not answer the question it raises. It only poses it with maximum sharpness. Was this the proof that the Wehrmacht could still have won? Or was it the last time the system could demonstrate its own superiority clearly enough to sustain the illusion? The answer does not lie in Kharkov. It lies in what came after. In the Kursk salient that the counteroffensive itself created. In the summer of 1943, when the same divisions, rebuilt one more time, though not to the same standard, drove into the deepest defensive system ever constructed on the Eastern Front. A multiplier on a shrinking base shrinks. The phrase appears nowhere in the official records. The mathematics appear everywhere. 3 divisions received everything. The other 100 received what was left. The 3 won a battle that proved a concept. The concept was that enough resources, concentrated narrowly enough, could still produce tactical miracles. The concept was correct. It was also irrelevant, because the war was not decided by any single battle. It was decided by the cumulative capacity of two systems, one that could replace what it lost and one that could not. The signature on the allocation orders did not change that equation. It only determined who fought with modern guns and who fought without them. The files are closed. The question remains open. 2.